don't be afraid to commit to your goals because of the time that it's going to take. Time is going to pass regardless. So commit to it. Put your effort, focus, passion into whatever it is that you're committing to. Because guess what? If you're afraid, because I think of like, if I go start like a business that I really love, it's going to take 3 or 4 years to build up before guess what? The 3 or 4 years are going to pass anyways. Yeah. So do you want to be at 3 or 4 years and not and not have accomplished that goal? Time doesn't care.
I've got a little bone to pick with you before we get there. How was y'all's Thanksgiving? It
was great.
Yeah. Y'all stayed here, right?
Yeah. It's busy.
Everybody
weekend.
Was at your house?
Yeah. We hosted Thursday and then like breakfast, and then everyone came at noon, so it was an all day deal. Yeah. And then
so y'all are lunch Thanksgiving?
No. Just because Cowboys were on at 3:30, like everyone came, started watching the early game.
Okay.
But like,
which was horrible.
Tiffany's family there, gosh.
What was it?
Chicago
versus Detroit. Yeah, it was
I mean, hey, kudos to Andy. I mean, I'm glad he got a win. But my wife's family, Tiffany's family, like their family tradition is every holiday is they do Eggs Benedict. So we just
never had that.
You've never had it?
In my life.
We'll have to have you guys over, do a little brunch.
Well,
or something.
this is the 19th time you said, we'll have to have you guys over. I don't buy it.
Well, bro, the invites are there. It's just the Gibbs don't ever leave the house.
That's a fact. That's true.
But so
did y'all do dinner then?
We did. We ate at 4:30.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So smoked a turkey.
Nice.
Did a traditional.
You did it yourself?
Turkey. Yeah, I did the smoked turkey. Tiff's mom. So she comes. She usually hosts, but our numbers have gotten big enough that we
a lot of kids.
So it's nice. She comes over and she does all the cooking at our house.
Yeah.
So somebody comes, does the cooking, but you don't have to leave your house. It's kind of great.
Oh, it's great. Yeah, we for the first time, and I felt like an adult this time around. We hosted.
Yes.
My wife and 2 sons and I. We had 6 boys under 7 stayed at our house, and then 6 adults.
6 boys under 7.
Yeah. So my oldest brother, who has 3 kids himself, wasn't able to come. So
it could have been.
even more wild. So, so everybody was under one house. We do lunch. We did I think we ate at like 1:30.
Okay.
I've never understood the dinner people, the people that do Thanksgiving
dinner.
It's
dark. Yeah, I agree.
That's weird.
I'm with you.
If you do that, stop listening to this podcast right now.
Yeah, because here's the deal. You by default eliminate the post-Thanksgiving meal nap.
Exactly.
You just go to bed.
Yeah,
no thanks.
You're eliminating one of the most important things. And I've said this before. Thanksgiving is my favorite holiday. Yeah. Christmas is a close second. I get it. I get the people that are fanatic about Christmas.
Yeah.
But Thanksgiving is holy to me. I love
it's a good day, man. It honestly is. It's good energy. I mean, when it surrounds food, you can't.
And that Cowboys game was wild. I don't think I've ever. God. It was literally the most penalties in the last 5 years in any NFL game. I mean, that was. It was just they didn't even make plays. Like, it was just throw the ball up, get a penalty. That was our big play.
Wow. But here's what's crazy is the viewership.
Yeah.
Of the game was
28 million
off
viewers.
The charts.
Yeah, the most watched game
since like 98 or something like that. Some like crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, that's wild.
That is wild.
Granted, that time slot typically does. I mean, it's the perfect time, right? But then you look at like Monday Night Football. You look at there was a stat. Is it the Mavericks viewership? Was like less than like Rizzoli and Isles reruns on the same day, and then the Cowboys are breaking records. Yeah, it's like, dang, man.
That sucks. It shows, man, that you either love the Cowboys, you want to see them succeed, or you hate them. But regardless, everybody's watching.
See them fail.
Yeah, everybody's watching regardless, whether you hate them or you love. It's like the Yankee effect, right? Yeah. Everybody hates or loves the Yankees. Yeah. So anyway,
so what's this bone you got to pick?
So. This might ruffle your feathers. It might ruffle David's feathers over there, our producer.
Hey,
David, I don't know.
Hey, David, you and me are on a team today.
David,
all right,
David,
you sure I'm against you?
Oh,
yeah, I know.
If you hear that voice, that's David. He's our awesome producer. If you've realized and noticed that our video quality has multiplied by about a factor of 10.
Yeah, I was going to say
as far as quality
10X,
goes,
maybe 11.3x.
That's
somewhere in between.
That's all thanks to our man David, whose voice you just heard, and I don't know if
Snacks Media shout out.
Yeah, Snacks Media. Go check them out. They're doing awesome things. And we'll bring him in a little bit later. The reason we gave him a microphone, he's got a good insight on the conversation we're gonna have here in a little bit. But the bone I have to pick is about a TV show that you've been ranting and raving about for years now.
Yeah.
And this TV show is called Yellowstone.
Hold on. Let me check. Make sure. Okay, this isn't anchored down. This is gonna get flipped.
David, have you seen Yellowstone?
I have not.
Okay. So you're not a part of this. So Tyler, for literally, Yellowstone came out when?
We're in season 4.
Yeah. So 4 years ago.
So yeah.
Ish. So you've been talking about it ever since the beginning.
3 years. Yeah.
And it was on some weird channel you had to pay for, so nobody ever watched it.
Well,
early on.
No, Paramount. It just comes with your basic DirecTV package. But yeah.
Yeah, I do.
Which now Paramount, and they have this Paramount Plus deal. It's literally one of the top, now it carries all these sports. It's like one of the top.
Yeah, it's like Netflix, right? You pay $10 a month or whatever. And
the plus side of it. But the Paramount network is on just cable TV.
Okay, so we don't have cable. We have YouTube TV. We cut the cord a couple years ago.
I forgot you're one of those people.
Yeah, we're one of those weirdos. Because we thought it was going to save us money, but we ended up doing 19 other subscriptions. So it didn't save us anything. But
it's like, okay, we spent $180 on cable, or we get 20 different subscriptions at $6.99.
And Netflix is up to like $20 a month.
Yeah,
anyway, so
boom.
I download and purchase Paramount Plus. Yeah. Because you've been talking about Yellowstone all this time. I hear about season 4, the 2-hour premiere. Apparently, it was the greatest thing ever since freaking, what's that one show that everybody loved, the medieval show?
Game of Thrones.
Game of Thrones, which I never saw that either. So I'm all excited, right? And I'm going to start at season 1. I'm going to start from the beginning.
I literally was like, don't tell me you just jumped in on season 4.
So I start with season 1, and the episodes are random lengths. I think episode 1 was like an hour and 5 minutes. Episode 2 was like 43 minutes. It was so weird. And
so you got to think, if you're streaming it, it removes all the commercials because it's an hour block on.
So Paramount Plus, they sneak in commercials still every now and then, like a minute worth. Anyway, so I'm excited, right? I'm pumped. This is going to be awesome. Tyler's been talking about it for literally 4 years. Everybody on the internet's talking about it. This show's going to be great. I like, where does it take? Wyoming. I love, the scenery. Montana, whatever.
Yeah. Shows how much you've watched.
Seriously. And so
is this going to lead into our actual topic today?
No.
It's going to. I guess
it
see
can.
Where it's going. I see where it's going.
Because I'm uncommitted to the show now after what I saw.
Yeah.
So I tried the first 4 episodes, and I can't get into it. I've literally fallen asleep every episode.
What time are you starting at?
Late.
I've got a couple shows like that too. Like my brother's like raved about.
Yeah.
And it's like I'll wait until Tiffany goes to sleep because I know she's not gonna like it. And I'm like 20 minutes into it. I don't care how good it is. I fall asleep.
Yeah.
And then I gotta like rewatch. And it's like I'm not following the storyline. I'm not following any of this.
Yeah, that's how I am with the show. So I've seen 4 episodes.
Yeah.
I keep thinking, okay, it's gonna get better. It's just slow to start. I can't do it. So I guess what I'm bringing this up for is, number 1, your choice in show sucks. But number 2, does it get better?
You mean America's Choice in Shows? This is the number 1 TV show, but go ahead.
That's what I'm saying. It has to get better, right? Yes. Surely it picks up.
Yeah. So
to get better,
right? So the first few episodes are very much building the characters,
laying the foundation.
Yeah,
and I get that.
It's just, man, there's this like re-emerging fantasy of like the cowboy lifestyle, right? Because I think we're so like city based and technology connected and all this. Like there's this fantasy now, and me included, is like, hey, like remove yourself from that and like go live this like Western cowboy lifestyle. Be a part of the land, have peace, enjoy natural beauty and all these things. So people get that and like feel it. Like land prices in Montana like tripled since that show's come out, like directly related to that show.
I'm sure. Well, that's the best part is the scenery shots, and the horses, and I love all that. I'm all down with all that. But for whatever reason, the storyline, I'm just like,
I'll say this. Episode 1 was intense, right? And there was a lot going on in the first episode. But then 2, 3, 4, maybe I could see how it's like, all right, I'm not sure exactly where this is going. It's kind of a little bit depressing. Like I'm not, but commitment, man. Stay committed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're saying your advice is tough it out and keep going.
Yeah, keep going.
Because it's a commitment. I mean, each episode's an hour.
Yeah.
That's a lot of time.
I would say this, man. Like once the boys go down, throw it on.
Yeah. Because Whitney watched it with me as well, and she was kind of like, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. It took Tiffany, my wife, a little bit to get into it too, and then now she's all in.
Yeah. I'll stick to Squid Game.
You do like all these off the wall.
David, did you see Squid Game?
Yep, I liked it.
Was that not the most wild show you may have ever seen besides you?
Yeah, it was good.
It was good.
Yeah.
It was really good. You haven't seen it yet, Tyler?
Not yet, no.
That you want to talk about #1 show in America? This is the #1 show in the world. I think Netflix, maybe it broke all sorts of records for Netflix as one of the most watched shows.
Jeez. I don't know, man.
It's wild. So go check it out.
I have this like generational barrier that like I can't go below. Like if like a 16-year-old likes it, like I immediately won't like it.
That's the weird thing. I would never let my 16-year-old watch Squid Game.
Oh, serious?
It's that crazy.
Huh.
Yeah. This is not a teenager show yet. You're right. That seems to be who it's most popular with.
Yeah.
Is teenagers and young
Parents
adults
these days, man.
Yeah, they're just freaking.
You're letting your kids watch.
Yeah. How about you stick around for this talk about commitment? But before we get there, we did have a wellness tip of the week.
Yes.
This week.
It's my favorite. This is my favorite time of the week.
This is a great little segment.
Yeah.
And it's brought to us obviously by our friends at Sleep Number, which Sleep Number, we got our bed. Tyler, you got your bed.
I'm 2 weeks in now.
You're 2 weeks in now.
Yeah,
Okay.
I literally got it on my birthday.
Okay. I hate when people push products just because they know that they're being compensated. You know, there's something in it for them, right? I'm not joking with you. I can't remember sleeping through the night as many times in the last 2 weeks as I have since I got my Sleep Number bed.
Yep.
It's wild. Like, you wouldn't think a mattress would make that much of a difference, but it's the most comfortable experience sleeping I've ever had. And I've never had trouble falling asleep. For me, it's always been I'll wake up every now and then.
Yeah.
I've slept through the night literally multiple times. I can't remember the last time I did that.
It's insane. Like night one, you wake up and your body feels different.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I've just literally always woken up and it's always like, okay, I'm stiff. Like, cause I usually am like a side sleeper. Mm-hmm. And I know that like, that's not necessarily like great on your back unless you've got the right kind of mattress and all that. But like, I always have this like stiffness in my back. And literally night one, I did a little elevation on the legs, a little elevation behind my head, just a little bit. Right. Yeah. And it was insane. Like I woke up ready to go.
Yeah.
And it's really just gotten better because you learn, right? And the bed, it seems like the bed learns you. And I don't know.
Well, that's the technology aspect of it. It adjusts to your
needs. It's a game changer. And then Tiffany, she's got like the heated foot pad. I thought it was just like the whole thing. So I'm like dreading this, like, because I have to have like cold sheets. I
accidentally turned it on the other day. It is horrible.
It's miserable, man. It's like it feels like, when I think of like a hot bed, I think of, and like this is Tiffany's dream. That's how like we're wired so different. Is like that's like her dream. Like get in like right out of the dryer. Sheets are hot. Mm-hmm. Like
Whitney's the same exact way.
But like, yeah, dude, she has hers on and mine's still cool.
Yeah,
I didn't
You're
realize
basically sleeping in two different beds. It's wild. It's one bed, but it's two separate. Completely separate experiences.
Yeah.
So.
And she pulled the snore on me Thanksgiving. I think I OD'd on calories. So some extra weight, like
your
just
neck
on my
was just
throat.
being compressed.
So she hit the snooze for the first time, and she's like, it was crazy. Like it immediately like, and I woke up. I'm like, why am I up so high?
It stopped your
She's
snoring?
like, I hit the button and you stopped.
That's a game. I mean, if nothing else, you get it for that reason because everybody knows somebody who snores in the room, it's impossible to sleep with a snorer. Yeah. Impossible. Yeah. So if it can change that, that's a reason enough to go check out Sleep Number.
You know the other thing that like, again, I know we're spending a lot of time on this, but like I'm not like excited about like all the features, right? One, I didn't even know that this was part of it, is I get up in the morning to work out, like, you know, depending on the day, like this morning I was up at 4. It's like I get up, the freaking light under the bed turns on right when I get out of bed.
I didn't even notice that.
Bro, it turns on. Turn that switch on because you can turn it on and off. Okay. When you get out of bed, it turns on and it stays on for like 5 minutes until you get back. The second you get back in bed, it turns off. Huh. And so I don't have to turn on all the lights and then like, Tiffany
lights your
rolls
path.
over and pulls a blanket over her head and like the annoying,
Yeah.
It's amazing. I mean, just the littlest things, man,
They
are
thought of
amazing.
everything. They thought of everything.
It's
So
great.
this wellness tip doesn't necessarily have to do with sleep, but thank you to Sleep Number as always for bringing up this wellness tip and for your awesome products. 'Cause, man, sleepnumber.com, go check them out. Today's tip. So we've talked about the why. We've talked about, sleep habits and better sleep tips. Today's topic is something, and I think we've said this before. I spent 5 years formally in the fitness industry. Years before that, I was in internships and things like that. Wasn't getting paid, but I've been in the fitness industry, was in the fitness industry for 10 to 12 years, something like that total, I think is what it ended up to be. And the number one thing that always gets brought up is nutrition. By far and away, nutrition is the number one thing that I ever heard people talk about. And now that I'm in an office, now that we're in an office, still to this day, that's the number one thing on most people's mind. What do I eat?
Yeah.
And more specifically, people are asking, what diet do I follow?
Yeah.
So when I say the word diet, David, you can feel free to jump in on this as well. What do you think of when you think of the word diet?
A finite period of time. Like there's a start and there's a finish when I think of diet, right?
Yeah.
It's like I've got to whatever platform, whatever method you choose, right? I don't want to say what diet you choose, but really like whatever you choose. Okay, hey, I start January 1st and I've got vacation on May 13th. And like, that's the period that I'm focused on.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I think of when I hear diet. And I think of the word fad comes in always. Like, what's the newest and, what's going to lose it the quickest and what's the easiest? Like, to me, and I apologize. And that's why I think this is where you're going to go with it. Like, diet has a very negative connotation to it, right? It correlates to struggle. It correlates to pain. It correlates to uncomfort. But to me, it correlates to, honestly, like laziness.
Yeah.
And like quick fix.
I'm glad you said that because that's something I want to touch on. David, anything to add there? Is that what you're not, you're kind of in the same boat as us now in the office world where we're not super entrenched in fitness, but what do you think about when you think of your
once
diet?
I get to a certain weight, then the floodgates are open and and it's over.
So diet is more about a process, and then once you get to that certain goal, whatever goal you had in mind, then you're done with it, and now you can go back to doing whatever you're doing.
Yep.
Got it. That's what most people think.
Yeah.
And that's when you think of diet, like you said, Tyler, you think of this period of time, that this beginning and this end of your food style. And there's tons of diets out there, right? You've got paleo, you've got keto, you've got if it fits your macros, if you've got Whole30, carnivore. I mean, there's tons and tons of diets out there. And so how do you know when you've got all these diets that you can follow, how do you know which one is the right one for you? So before we get there, I want to establish that, like you're saying, Tyler, diet doesn't necessarily mean weight loss. It's your overall eating plan. How do you eat? That is your diet. But we always go towards thinking about the weight loss when we think about diet. So that's what we're going to focus on. There's 100 different directions.
People will say, right, like, oh, I'm on a diet.
Right.
No, you're always on a diet.
It's like saying I'm drinking a Coke, but you really have a Dr. Pepper. What you're saying is,
Yeah.
I'm on a diet. What you're really meaning is I'm trying to lose weight.
Yes.
Right. That's the goal, is I'm trying to lose weight. Whereas diet really is your overall eating plan and how you eat. And so with all these different diets out there, really, and what you said a second ago, what always comes to my mind is, okay, what is this person trying to get out of this? Why are they looking for the perfect, quote unquote, diet? Are they looking for a quick fix? Are they looking for quick weight loss? What is it that's in it for them when they think of going on a diet, and why they want to choose it? Because everybody wants the perfect diet.
Yeah.
Right? Everybody wants that diet that's going to do, for whatever reason, we think this keto diet, that's what's going to put me over the edge. That's what's going to get me to my goals. That's what's going to give me all this weight loss. And that's great. If you want to follow keto, go for it. If you want to follow carnivore, go for it. If you want to follow Whole30, whatever. I guess my point would be, when thinking about whatever the best diet is for you, to me, it's pretty simple. What's the one that you can stick to?
Yeah. Now,
it's that simple.
No, And clarify, what do you mean when you say stick to? Like stick to for a year, stick to for 6 months? I'm talking about the diet. Stick to for...
I get that there's phases, and it definitely is a phase where you're wanting to lose 10 pounds.
Yeah.
But when I think of diet, I think of overall, what's my eating style? Mm-hmm. If I think of I'm 34 years old and I'm going to live till I'm 90, am I going to really follow a ketogenic diet that long? So what you've got to establish is if I'm going to go on one of these fad diets or these plans that are great, they've all got their pros and cons. If I'm going to do that, I've got to think long term. Mm-hmm. Yes, there's phases of time where I need to restrict and be super, watch what I'm eating. But what can I really stick to long term? Because a diet, there's no magic in keto versus carnivore versus from a weight loss perspective. There's no magic other than you're putting yourself in a caloric restriction.
Yep.
So yes, keto maybe there's health benefits outside of, but when most people think of diet, they think of weight loss.
Yeah.
And there's no magic diet out there that's going to help you lose weight more so than another diet if you're still in a caloric surplus. And what does that mean? That means the calories you consume versus the calories that you expend.
Yeah.
And there's multiple ways that you expend calories: through fitness, through just daily activity, through digestion, and then through so there's multiple ways that you can burn calories. And then the calories that you consume, if that balance is off, if you're consuming more than you burn, you're going to gain weight. If you're consuming less than you burn, you're going to lose weight. It's just a simple math there.
Right.
So how you get there is up to you, right? There's no magic about keto that's all of a sudden going to make me lose an extra 10 pounds that carnivore couldn't if my calories are the same.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It does. It does. And that's and that's one thing. And a previous guest of ours, Dr. Lane Norton, if you follow him on Instagram, it's BioLane. And one of the things he's a huge advocate about, right, is one, he's about science. He's about what does the research actually say? And like you said, people are thinking, okay, hey, this keto, right? Because I'm going to burn fat instead of carbohydrates, and I'm going to use fat as energy, and that's what I want. Is I want to learn. Look, there may be some science behind being in ketosis, right? There may be, okay, look, there is a process from your digestion and metabolism that, yes, that is true. But like you said, is ultimately, if you eat 6,000 calories of proteins and fats, it's really hard to lose weight when you're only burning 4,000 because calories are calories.
Right.
Calories are ultimately what turn into body fat, right? And that's one thing that Lane Norton always talks about. He's like, look, you can pick this. You can pick this. He's like agnostic about it all. He's like, look, I'm not saying keto is better than this, that this is this. Ultimately, it comes down to calories. He's very, very, very like educated and detail oriented. But what I love about him, man, is he simplifies it to say, hey, look, it ultimately is about calories, when and how, what calories you consume. Because one of the things that I've heard him say before is like, look, if you need 300 calories, you can get 300 calories from a Pop-Tart, or you can get 300 calories from a chicken breast. Now, the difference is you're not getting the nutritional value out of the Pop-Tarts.
Right.
But if that's all and you're going to feel left unsatisfied and you're going to be hungrier, right? But that's 300 calories and 300 calories. Yep. You're going to have the same weight loss if you're still in a deficit. You're going to have the same weight loss as if you eat 300 calories of a chicken breast, right? Yep. And you have the same calories through the day. But you're just not going to receive the nutritional benefits from a Pop-Tart than you are. Those are empty calories.
Yep.
That's what that is. And so one of the things that you said is from a sustainable standpoint, what can you do to create your forever diet, right? What is it? And sometimes you have to play with it.
Yeah.
You know, maybe it's forms of keto, maybe it's forms of vegan, maybe it's forms, whatever it is for you that is like, okay, look, this is something I'm going to implement, and I'm going to implement a sustainable approach to it. It's not, hey, I typically consume 3,000 calories a day, and now I'm going to go to 600 calories a day. That's not sustainable. You can't do it. So you may be able to do it for 2 weeks and be uncomfortable for 2 weeks, but you're never, ever going to. And so there's sustainable and then there's discipline, right? And those have to work together, because yes, if you are going to change something, you are going to choose a diet where I want different results than what I currently have right now, whether from a functionality standpoint, from an aesthetic standpoint, from a longevity standpoint, whatever reason you're doing this diet is, okay, I've got a couple: consistency, sustainability, and discipline, like through that. And what is it? And it takes work. And that's why I say discipline, because you actually have to be aware, and you can't just, okay, and I'm guilty of this right at the office. It's like, oh man, I'm hungry. I'm going to go grab some corn nuts, and then I'm going to grab a little Hershey's chocolate bar, and it's like, no, like you've got to have a plan going forward. And anybody that is successful in any type of nutritional regimen is, they think ahead, they plan ahead. They're not just reactive about it, because that's when you're getting all of these calories that you just are unaware of. You may think, okay, hey, I had a good breakfast, I had a good lunch, or small lunch, and I'm really good. And then I got really hungry and I snacked all afternoon, and I took 1,500 calories that I didn't even plan on. And then I had a healthy dinner. I'm like, why aren't I losing weight? Well, it ultimately is, what are you doing? And if you're not planning and you're not creating something that, okay, look, this is a regimen that I follow. Look, and you don't have to be perfect. That's one thing I'm sure you're going to talk about, because you don't have to be perfect. But if I can follow it over the long haul, right, those are the results that I'm going to see. Yep. And I think that's one thing too is setting expectations correctly. And one of the things that you do really well. So Ben's not going to say this, but Ben is our wellness coach for our company, our real estate company. So he comes in and he does wellness, like somewhat similar to this, maybe an abbreviated version, but like, hey, look, here are some things, and implements health challenges, because our leadership at our company is just really big on just overall wellness, right? Like employees that are happy, they're healthy, that have resources, all those things. And so that's what he does for our company, on top of his actual day job. But one of the things that you talk about is like, don't try to reach your results in 4 weeks or 6 weeks. Look, set this out. This is a year-long process, and I'm going to create habits that now go for 10 years, for 20 years, for 40 years, whatever it is. Because if you lose 2 pounds a week for a year and you're overweight, that's over 100 pounds in a year. That is you walking in the door a year later and nobody recognizing you.
Yeah.
If you do 2 pounds a week,
that's a lot.
Not trying to do,
is a lot.
It's a lot. That's what I'm saying. But that's not, I got to lose a pound a day, or I got to lose 30 pounds in a month.
Yep.
Right? Like that's 2 pounds a week is it's a big number. I get it. Right. That's essentially 8 to 10 pounds a month. But setting realistic goals, but then also not being so harsh on yourself, giving yourself forgiveness. One thing I think that we do as people is we treat ourselves like dogs when it comes to food. Like we reward ourselves. Oh, we had a really hard workout. I deserve this pizza. I'm rewarding myself with this bowl of ice cream, or I'm rewarding myself with this. Like, don't think of it that way. Like, look, if you would like a bowl of ice cream, okay, I understand that I would like a treat. Okay. But don't let that reward take you off track of your long-term goals. You know what I mean? And don't think of it as like, I'm rewarding myself, because now you're putting this responsibility on food as a reward, rather than, okay, now I look at it as, look, food is all that is a resource for my body. It's not anything else. The reason that we consume food is so that I can perform as a human.
Yeah. And in the context of what we're talking about, weight loss specifically, there are going to be phases of time where you are going to have to restrict calories. So so you talked about earlier, Pop-Tart versus chicken breast. From a health perspective, the choice is obvious. I'm going to go with the chicken breast. Yeah. But the point is, most of us think of weight loss. There's no magic in any of these diets. The magic is you're eating less calories than you're burning. That's the magic. Now, if you want to talk about overall health, that's a different conversation, right? So this conversation, this particular topic of weight loss, it doesn't matter what diet you follow, as long as you're in a caloric restriction, you're going to lose weight, and it's going to be great for you. Now, understand, that's not something that you can sustain forever. Yeah. Weight loss is supposed to be done in phases. It's not supposed to be this perpetual, endless cycle that you go through, that you're constantly trying to lose weight.
I lose 50 pounds a year for the rest of my life. No, it's impossible.
Nor would that be healthy. Weight loss is not healthy.
Yeah.
The body does not want to lose weight. Yeah. It's stressful, right? So it's meant to be done in phases. So what do you do after that phase? That's your dietary lifestyle. That's your regimen. That's what we're talking about. Find something that works for you that you can sustain. If you want to follow keto for 8 weeks, which by the way, it's really hard to actually follow keto. Yeah. You've got to wear a blood monitor and everything to really truly be in ketosis. Yeah. Most people do a modified, poor man's version that they never actually get. Anyway, that's a side tangent. Whatever it is you want to follow, that's fine. Yeah. But think about, once you're done with that diet phase, think about overall, what can I really truly sustain? Because most people, 90% of people that lose weight end up gaining it back. Yeah. Because they're not doing things that are going to be sustainable long term. Yeah. So to wrap this up, what are your personal food preferences? What foods does your body react best to? And what diet can you follow long enough to see results? Those are the things that I think people should factor in whenever they're considering how do I want to eat. And so for me personally, I call it the 90-10 rule, the 90-10 diet. 90% of the time, I'm going to eat some sort of protein, eat some sort of vegetable or fruit, and I'm going to eat some sort of quote unquote healthy starchy carbs. Yep. So rice, potatoes, sweet potatoes, things like that. That's going to be my diet 90% of the time. Yep. 10% of the time, I'm going to drink a milkshake. I'm going to eat French fries. I'm going to do whatever I want. And so to me...
French fries don't fall in the healthy starches?
Yeah, sorry. Dang. So to me, I understand, maybe those aren't the healthiest choices, but I'm going to, for me personally, that's a if I just completely try to restrict those and never eat those again, that's not realistic.
That's right.
So I'm allowing myself those things every now and then, as long as I'm making good choices 90% of the time. Yeah. Right? As opposed to me, it's unrealistic for me to say I'm going to follow a ketogenic diet. Yeah. That's unrealistic for me. Yep. So the best diet for you is the one that you can follow.
That's right.
And I know that's not a sexy answer. No. I know everybody wants that magic, because that's what we're looking for, the shortcut ultimately, right? Yep. We're looking for that magic bullet. There is no magic bullet. Nope. What works for you? That's what you need to think about when you're thinking about what's the best diet for
One thing that you did say, and as we wrap it up, and I think the clean transition of this conversation to our next is listen to your body too. I think people's bodies are changing. For example, for me, dairy is something recently that my body it's been harder to digest. So like cheeses, creams, so whether it's ice cream, like I have like a hangover if I eat ice cream. I literally, my body, I feel like I'm hungover if I've had ice cream. So listen to your body, right? And understand how your body, how it thrives. What foods can you put in your body? When I'm really big on fruits and vegetables, when I'm really consistent with those, like in supplement to proteins and like you said, starches, like my body performs better. I sleep better. I like listen to your body. Your body will tell it. And then don't ignore those things. Like there's a reason your body is reacting that way. Look, and then you can go down all these rabbit holes about, I don't say rabbit holes because it's really important, but I mean like with gut health and enzymes and microbes and all these things about digestion and all that. But first and foremost, listen to your body, and your body is going to tell you what it likes and what it needs for fuel to perform well.
Yeah. Yeah. And you may hear that, and you hear Tyler saying, he doesn't eat dairy anymore.
No, I'm not saying I don't.
Well, then I shouldn't eat dairy. No, that's not what maybe you do just fine with dairy. Yeah. So whatever you hear, take it with a grain of salt. Like Tyler's saying, it's about your body. It's not about somebody else's or what. Now, of course, take guidelines and take advice, but ultimately at the end of the day is what's best for you. What can you sustainably follow for literally the rest of your life? Yeah. And if you're looking for resources as we wrap this up, Dr. Lane Norton, who Tyler mentioned, and his wife, Holly Baxter. Yeah. They were actually guests, episodes 39 and 41. Now the sound quality is pretty horrible back then.
We didn't have David.
So maybe
we didn't have Snacks Media.
Maybe don't go back and listen to those. But they are two of my favorite resources. Another one I like is Alan Aragon. Have you ever heard of Alan Aragon?
Yeah, you've sent me some of his stuff.
So his website is alanaragon.com, because, and let me caveat with these resources, these are ones that I've found over the years that would be the most trustworthy. Yeah. These guys are relying on the data. Yeah. They're not being emotional about their advice, like some people. They're not getting religious about their advice. Yeah. These are guys that are looking at the data
about a certain.
Yep. Yeah. And then the last one, and this one you've probably never heard of. If you really want to get nerdy about nutrition, like really nerdy, this guy's name is Lyle Mcdonald. I'm pretty sure he's autistic. And so, how with autism, like they pick
I can't say that.
Well, there's an avenue that they are really, really, really immersed into.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, his is nutrition. And so he is one of the smartest nutrition minds I've ever experienced. Now, again, he's going down to the molecular. He's getting super nerdy with this. So if that's
who's
too
the guy, who's
over
the guy
your
in
head,
Austin that you sent?
In Austin?
Yeah, he's a guy down in Austin. We'll share this link when we do this. We'll share some resources in our post. But there's a guy that
Anyway, so Lyle Mcdonald, his website is bodyrecomposition.com. Again, it's heavy material. Like he goes in depth, but if you can digest it, no pun intended, it's really good information that he's putting out there because he is that invested. So those are my four of my favorite resources: Dr. Lane Norton, Holly Baxter, Alan Aragon, and Lyle McDonald. And there's tons of, but there's also tons of crappy.
I was going to say my suggestions are just hop on YouTube and any ad that pops up, it's truth. So just make sure you listen to those guys.
Be careful with.
If he has his shirt off and he's in the gym, he's probably a respectable source.
Usually my rule of thumb is if Dr. Lane Norton says it, I'm gonna trust that advice. Yeah. So anyway, thank you to Sleep Number. As always, hopefully that's helpful to you guys. Again, we could have gone. There's nutrition so complex. There's a million different routes, but ultimately at the end of the day, what can you sustainably?
And so from a transition standpoint, one of the things that we discussed is sustainability, like committing to a healthy lifestyle from a food standpoint, which we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about just the idea of commitment, the fear of commitment, the lack of commitment, and when we think of, like, for example, preparing for the show, doing research, you type in commitment or fear of commitment, everything pops up as relational, right? Everything is fear of committing to a relationship and this. And yes, we're going to hit on a couple of those things today, but when we're talking about commitment, we're talking about commitment to your goals, commitment to the people around you. So not just significant others, intimate relationships, the people around you. Committing to a job, committing to your kids and parenting, committing to your identity, committing to your beliefs, right? There's so many ways to commit that the reason we were talking about this is I think that we have such a lack of commitment in our culture today. There's the idea of committing to something to see it through is more and more absent, I think, than it ever has been. And there's a handful of reasons, and I want to start off like culturally. My observations and why I think that we're seeing a decline in that is, number one, I think we struggle as a culture with commitment. And I'm gonna, let me separate this first one. Men in our culture, we struggle with commitment for a couple of reasons. One is we hear media, Hollywood, news sources, social media, everything is very focused on do what you want, right? It's about you. It's a selfish mentality where there's really good things about selfish. I think you can be selfish and be super committed, but it's what do I want to do? If there's any external commitment, we're like, no, like that doesn't align with what I want. So I don't want to commit to it. I don't want to, it's about me. As a father, this is where I think the biggest hole in our society is men are not committed to being fathers. And I'm not saying that's based off of race. I'm not saying that's based off of location. I'm not saying it's based off of socioeconomic status. I'm saying as a whole men, because here's the deal. There are dads that are still married and in the home that are just as uncommitted to being a father as a dad that got someone pregnant and has nothing to do with the kid, because they're focused on everything else but being a dad. I think we struggle there. I think culturally also everything is easy now, and culturally we are coached to shy away from the discomfort. Anything that's uncomfortable must not be right. Like that's being ingrained because it's that whole saying, and we've said it on the show a million times, right? Tough times create hard men. Hard men
create good
times. Good times create soft men. Soft men create
tough times,
right? This cycle. And we're in that good times create soft men. So we're soft. We are soft as a culture. And so we don't have the toughness to push through hard times and things that we should be committed to. Whether that's, like we just talked about, a diet, right? We're the most overweight culture, that we're the most overweight than we ever have been. We have the most single mom families, single mom run families. We have,
you're talking about education.
I mean, education. Right? Yeah, there's something, right?
We used to rank top in the world in education. Now we're literally in the 30s and 40s for most of our. I mean,
math, on a global scale, right? Like we're nowhere near where we've been, right? Yeah. And so we're not committed there, but we've just become soft, and commitment is a byproduct of the lack of discipline and lack of resilience that we have as men. And this is a generalization. I'm not saying everybody's this way. So if you're listening, you're like, I'm not soft. Okay, great. But look at yourself. Like, are you really staying committed?
Soft. I'll admit it.
Yeah.
I'm very soft in comparison to the generation before us.
Yeah.
Right? And it goes back to what you're talking about. We've created, thankfully, it's a good thing that we've created such a great environment to survive and thrive and opportunities that we have. The problem with that is, like you're saying earlier, you don't really go through much difficulty.
Yeah.
Now, there's obviously pain, and life's always going to have different struggles and things like that. But from a general standpoint, our poorest people are still better off than 95% of the world. Right? So our perspective is, yes, we do have a problem. There's things we can improve, but even that's better than most.
Yeah.
And so when you really put it in that context, it's like, okay, well, what problems do we really have? And so when we talk about commitment, you rattle off a bunch of different reasons. For me personally, and I'm only going to speak for myself and not in generalizations, to me, commitment's hard because there's so many things I can get without having to totally commit.
Yep.
There are so many. Amazon is a great example, right? I can within a click, I can have something at my door, right? I didn't have to commit it. There was no sacrifice there. I didn't have to get in my car and go drive somewhere and actually spend my money.
Or go back further. I didn't have to walk 2 miles to go get water for my family. Or I didn't have to, pack up to go for a 2-week hunt to provide food for my tribe.
Yeah. But in the context of today, I literally didn't even have to get in my car.
Yeah.
Right. I've eliminated that step, which is great. I love that service. I'm so thankful for services like that have made my life easier.
Right.
But I don't even have to commit to putting any effort in.
Right.
So what does that do for me? That bleeds over into my job. Right. Okay. Now maybe something's not as easy to get through. Yeah. Maybe I'm not quite as committed to try to get through it because I've personally set my life up in such a way. I'm thankful for it, very grateful for it, but I don't have to struggle very often, which is why I always talk about fitness and putting yourself through those situations. And it's a conscious decision now. Mm-hmm. It used to be that was just your daily life, that you had to commit to things. Now you have to think about what you need to commit to.
Yeah.
And so for me, it's like you're saying, it's very easy for me to come home from work, turn on the TV, hang out, be there, but not truly committed to being the best father that I can be or the best husband that I can be.
Yeah.
It's because everything's just for me, it's on autopilot.
Yeah.
And when we talk about commitment, wanted to bring David in on this. I think about David and his story with Snacks Media. David had a very comfortable job before he started this company. You started Snacks Media when?
I've been on my own about 3 years now.
Yeah, but you were working before that. You had a comfortable job.
IT guy for 5 years.
Right, so he had a great job, right? He had a job that everybody would want, stable, was providing for his family. But tell us about the its that you had to start your own company, start your own. You wanted more, right? You wanted to commit to something. Tell us about that process.
Yeah, I had started to dabble in the video production and then realized I didn't want to be an IT guy the rest of my life.
Yeah.
I was good at it, but I got tired of resetting passwords all day. And
I was that guy last night.
You needed your password reset? Yeah.
I got locked out of an account.
So I got tired of guys like Tyler calling me at 10 p.m. And I one day I just saw my future like in 20 years, and I was fat. I was just still an IT guy because I had to be, because I had a house and kids, and they were going to college, and I was like, man,
life was very good for you in 20 years, but
well, it didn't look.
it wasn't what you wanted, right?
No.
Yeah.
No.
It looked. I don't think it looked good. It looked easy.
Right.
Yeah, it looked sad.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I didn't have any kids at the time, and my wife was working, and I was like, man, if I don't jump right now, I'm never gonna do it.
Yeah.
And so just said,
So you quit your job.
yep. Quit my job.
No true stability.
No.
Did you have clients
guarantees.
lined
Oh
up?
yeah. Because I had been slowly getting a
Okay.
clientele where I couldn't keep doing both jobs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I had
Was
developed some work.
was your clientele replacing the income? Was it enough to replace it, or were you going to have to take a pay cut?
No, yeah, I was gonna take a pay cut.
So what was that like? Jumping from a stable job with a wife to committing to.
I was never super money motivated. Well, I thought I was, because I was gonna quit the year. I was gonna quit the year before, and they're like, "How much money do you want?" And I wrote a decent sized number that I thought was like big,
They couldn't reach it. Yeah.
and then they're like, "Okay, that's fine."
What I meant was.
I meant double that.
Oh yeah, that 8 was a 9. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So then I was like, man, it was fun for 2 months after that. I was like, man, I can't believe I'm making this much money. I was 25. And then like 2 or 3 months later, I was like, man, this isn't as fun as I thought it was.
It's not as fulfilling as you think.
Which like in your head, you're always like, man, if I make this amount, if I make this number, it's going to be awesome.
Yeah.
Which I feel like, I mean, NFL guys, even at 30 million, do they feel? I mean, do some of those guys feel that way, or?
I think you always want more, no matter how much you have.
Yeah, and actually, it's funny. I was on the way here. I was listening to some sports radio, and it's Carlos Correa, the baseball guy, right?
Yeah.
I was speaking off of the microphone on purpose. But he's going into free agency, so he's a free agent, right? And he's made a ton of money up to this point. My question is they're talking about, he needs to, because they're going to go into a lockout after today when we're recording this episode. And they're going to go into a lockout, and he's got to sign today so he can get his contract. And I'm like, dude's got $100 million in the bank. Like, how motivated is he to get a bigger contract? And then it got me to thinking, like, how committed is he to refining his craft? Mm-hmm. So I'm wondering, like, okay, what is it that drives some of those elite guys that, have a combination of hard work and talent, right? That are making the big, massive, mega athletic contracts. And it was just interesting. I'm thinking, like, okay, what is he committed to? Is it the money that's getting him to go to training camp? Like, you look at Brady. It's very clear that money was not important to Brady. Now, granted, his wife made $200 million early on in his career. She was making a ton of money. And so, like, that's cool, but he's never been the highest paid quarterback. He's taken pay cuts to make the whole thing. He's super committed to his craft, to being the best. So he's committed to being the greatest quarterback of all time. Like, he's committed to it. It's not the money. And it was just an interesting thought process. And David, to your point is, okay, am I committed to chasing a salary to be comfortable? Mm-hmm. Or am I committed to building something that I can be proud of, that can fulfill me, that I can come home to my kids and they look at me and say, okay, Dad's doing what he loves and what he was built to do.
So when you finally decided, David, all right, I'm going to commit to this, I'm going to start my own thing, what was that like? Like the first few months after you'd quit your job, after you started this company, was it all just roses and rainbows and everything was great and life was awesome, or was there maybe some regret there a little bit after you made that commitment?
There was no regret, but it was definitely like, man, when I was first doing video production, everything was super fun, and no matter what it is, eventually it's gonna not be fun. Sometimes.
Shiny object.
That's a
great
doesn't
always stay shiny.
Even like pro golfers.
Yeah.
That seems like the dream job, and they get sick of it sometimes.
Yeah.
Because if you do the same thing over and over and you're grinding, it's eventually going to suck.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's a good point.
So that was also a good lesson. So I learned that lesson, and I learned the money's not going to make you happy lesson.
Yeah.
But if you had told me it was going to be as hard as it is now, I probably wouldn't have done it.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah. I mean, it's definitely been a grind.
Yeah. So right now you're deep into the cave of this is hard. This is really hard.
Oh yeah.
So what keeps you going down that path? I'm sure you could go back and get another IT job and be just fine. What keeps you committed toward the path, even though it's really difficult right now?
There are like signs you see like every few months where it's like, oh man, that reminder. That's pretty cool. Yeah. Like that, wow, this is what I was doing last year, and now I'm doing this. And I mean, I'm a huge Andy Frisella guy. That's how I found out about you guys, and how he, I think, was making $6,000 a year for 10 years.
Yeah. He made $53,000 total his first 10 years in business.
Yeah. And so if, he can go 10 years, I'm on year 3.
Yeah. But that's the hard thing, right? You're on year 3 and there's frustration there, because this is where I am. Year 2, year 4 in our business. There's this frustration there. Man, I should be, far and ahead, but that's not reality. And so when you're that lack of commitment in my mind, it's easy to now walk away because I'm not seeing results after 2 years or 3 years, right? So that's interesting that you say that. You also have a cool story about how you found us. Talk about commitment. Yeah. So tell everybody how our relationship started with you.
So I had heard you guys on Andy Frisella's podcast, and then I started listening to you guys randomly. And in my head, I was like, I'd probably listen to 5 or 6 of y'all's episodes. And I knew that y'all were in Dallas, so I was like, man, one day I want to be on the Darren Woodson show. And
here we are,
ladies and gentlemen, dreams do come true. And so I literally thought that to myself. And 2 days later, I have a client at this office building where we record the podcast, and I literally walk out of the client's office, and Darren Woodson is standing right there. And I'm like, man, no way. And so I just go up to him and I say, hey, what's up, Darren? He's like, hey, man. And I was like, I just started listening to the show and I really like it. And you could tell he got a little spark in his eye because I wasn't fanboying over him being a Cowboys player.
Yeah.
It was like actually over the podcast. And then, so I talked to him for like 5 minutes, and he brought me in the studio and I met Ben.
Yep.
And what me and Ben talk about is like, if you've heard of Andy Frisella, you've heard of 75 Hard, and I did that about a year and a half ago. And what that made me realize is that nobody really cares or is thinking about you. It's a hard thing to swallow, but it's also a very comforting thing to swallow. Because when I first started out, I probably wouldn't have gone up to Darren. But it's like, man, he can either say screw you and whatever, or he can be interested. He's not going to be thinking about it 10 minutes later.
Yeah.
In 75 Hard, you're not able to drink, and I always thought like, oh man, if I'm at a party and I'm not drinking, people are going to care. Literally nobody cares.
Nobody cares.
Everybody only cares about themselves.
Yeah.
And like obviously I care about my wife and my kids, but besides that, it's like I don't care what you guys did last night. I mean, I'm not thinking about y'all, and you're not thinking about me.
Right.
And it's a very comforting thing to think in sales too, because I mean, y'all are in somewhat sales.
Yeah.
And so that's just why I go into a lot of like sales conversations with, is that they're not going to be thinking about this, and if I can help them, I can help them, and that's kind of what I went into.
So that helps you in like getting over the hump of like committing to something.
Well, that's what what I love about that story is you are so committed to making Snacks Media the biggest empire, or whatever it is your goal is with them, that you're willing to do the scary thing, like walking up to Darren Woodson who doesn't know who you are. You're willing to do that because you're so committed to that ultimate goal of Snacks Media.
Yeah.
And I love that story because how many times do we think we're committed, but we're not willing to do those little things that are scary at the moment.
The uncomfortable things.
The uncomfortable things, right? We can't fully commit because we don't want to be uncomfortable for a little bit.
Isn't it so funny though, David? Like back to the whole like, dude, I can't worry about what other people think about or care about because they don't. But as you've gotten to know us, you're like, dude, I can't believe I was nervous because these guys are all clowns.
Yeah.
Like absolute clowns. Because and we think that. And it took me getting inside of NFL locker rooms and being like, bro, Tony Romo's just a dude. Like, he's got his own insecurities. He's got his own issues. Like Witten, Dez, whoever, right? They've got their own issues. Like, they're just dudes.
Yeah.
And it is a peaceful thing, because it's like, man, like, I'm worried about, if somebody sees my issues or like, screw it.
Yeah.
Like, commit to it. And you can't have all these external forces dictate why you can't do it. All right, we're going to take a quick break from the episode and recognize an opportunity that we all have. If you are having a hard week or you just need some R&R, here's what you got to do: is you got to drive up 75 north, cross the Red River to Durant, Oklahoma, to Choctaw Casino and Resort. It is the best getaway that you can get if you're in the Dallas area by far. And guess what? If you're listening from somewhere outside of DFW, say you're in South Texas or you're in another state, which we've got some listeners in other states, fly into Dallas, drive up. It is worth every penny. You don't have to go to Vegas anymore to have a world-class experience at a world-class resort and casino.
Yeah, we talk about the restaurants that are up there, those steakhouses. We talk about the concert venue. We had a conversation with Aaron Watson previously, and he talked about the intimacy. Every single seat in that concert venue is right on top. And there's not a bad seat in the house.
There's not.
And so these artists talk about it's one of the best places to play. And so go check out yourself a concert, the Spa, the brand new expansion. I mean, it's just such a good time. To your point, Tyler, if you need a break, things are getting crazy, times are tough, get up there, get up to Choctaw Casino Resort, have yourself a great time. We experience it. We love it. They're doing great things in the community. Can't say enough good things, and we're so grateful for their partnership. That's Choctaw Casino Resort. Go check them out. Now back to the episode.
Yeah. So I want to talk about really quickly, and thank you for sharing that, man. I think that's awesome. A couple of things that I want to hit on. They're legitimate reasons. I don't want this episode to be like, stop being soft, commit to it. Like that you're just a bad person if you don't commit to it. You have commitment issues. There's legitimate reasons why people have them, and I'm gonna just kind of go through these really quickly and then kind of give maybe some examples of each. But the reason that we as a culture have a fear of committing to something, there's a number of reasons. One is an attachment insecurity, and I'll go into that. Number two is, if you legitimately have a personality disorder, there are legitimate reasons why you're afraid or fearful or have a commitment phobia. And there's a difference between phobia and fear, right? There's trauma or prolonged stress that is associated with fear of commitment. Family history or modeling. So if you're watching things, there is a correlation between that. There's studies, and I'll share a couple of things about that, about if you grow up in a setting that shows you one way, you either are prone to be committed or prone not to be committed. And then lastly is self-esteem. And so the reason I said that last is because I want to roll into that. So self-esteem. For me, this is one of the reasons I've struggled in the past with commitment. One, in relationships, and then two, in reaching goals. In relationships, I've really struggled with self-esteem. And that was something that and I don't know where that originated from. I would say my family has always been super supportive. But I've always felt like people held me on a higher platform than I really truly thought of myself. I didn't think that I deserved the notoriety or acknowledgement that I got. And like I said, I'm not exactly sure, and maybe I do need counseling to dig into that more, but self-esteem has always been an issue. When it came to girls, I never, ever thought, and I joke about it with Tiffany, like I don't deserve her, but like truly, like in my heart, I believe that with like any girl that I ever dated. So I never like committed to even going up and approaching girls. Like my entire life, I've never gone up and hit on a girl. I've just never had the self-esteem. Partly because, and this is as you kind of progress in relationships, I had so many issues when it came to the way I thought about myself, is I was afraid because of what some of these other people said about me, is that they would find out that I was a fraud, right? That because I didn't believe it, it can't be true. So I don't want to go engage in a relationship or commit to a relationship, because the more I commit, the more you're going to know me and realize that I'm a fake.
Yeah.
I mean, I still struggle with that with my wife, honestly, is like there's things that like she says and I'm like, you've been with me for 13 years and you really think that? Like, gosh, I put on a good front then.
Right.
You know what I mean? There's there's times that I question that. So self-esteem is an issue that I think people really need to address. And this is me putting myself out there and really talking to myself is you cannot let self-esteem derail your path to happiness, which is connected through commitment, in my opinion. Because if it's a relationship, if it's a job, that commitment is that bridge that gets you there. Mm-hmm. Whether you stick to it through the hard times, or now you've got a relationship that is fulfilling, and you are committed not just to yourself, but something bigger than yourself, man. And we talk about that all the time on the show. So self-esteem is one of those issues. And I don't know what your guys' perspective on that is, but that is one of the reasons culturally, and, you know, from a paper written by psychology.
Yeah.
And that is one of the issues.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
I guess I wouldn't have tabbed it as self-esteem when I think of my lack of commitment to things. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't attribute it necessarily to self-esteem, but I guess in a way it could be that. I think for me, it's a fear of committing to something and it doesn't go how I hope that it goes. Yeah. And so I just think it's easier just to not even try or not even commit to it, because I don't want to deal with the pain of not succeeding.
Yeah.
And so I think early on in my life when I was...
Do you think it's internal pain for you? Because we're wired differently. There's a lot of things that we're very, very similar. But there's certain like motivational factors that are different between us.
Yeah.
So is it letting yourself down? Or is it, if I fail, I'm letting someone else down?
I think both. I mean, if we just use this podcast as an example, right? Like quitting our day job and fully committing to this podcast scares the hell out of me.
Yeah.
Because I've got family, I've got 2 kids. If it failed, and I don't think it would, but if it did, then what do I do? Yeah. Where do I go from there? Yeah. So that fear of failure is keeping me from committing despite how much I love doing this, right? And I want to keep doing both, right? Yeah. It's not like I want to quit that job just so I can but I do know that whatever you commit to and focus all your attention on, it's likely going to succeed. In most cases in my life, it's worked out that way. Yeah. If I've truly committed to something, it's worked out well.
Yeah.
But it's the bullshit that I tell myself to not commit, which is what actually keeps me from getting there.
Yeah.
But whenever I go all in and I really truly commit to something, 9.9 times out of 10, it works out because I've committed. I've truly committed. Mm-hmm. There's a big difference there in truly committing and going all in versus partial commitment or saying, I'm committed to this, but you're not really putting in the work to get there.
Yeah. And an example, and I think professionally, like David's example is exactly for me. Like I literally get levels of anxiety thinking about, because like you said, I love my job. I love my day job, real estate, most of the time. Mm-hmm. Like I do. Like there's things about it that I absolutely love. There's things about it I absolutely hate. But I think that's kind of with everything. I'm sure there's things in your job you're like, gosh, I don't want to stare at an editing screen for another 30 minutes, let alone the 6 hours that it's going to take to get me through this, right?
Oh yeah, and the business admin stuff.
And so there's things that like, but if I think about it, and I'm now 30, just turned 37, right? And I look at some of these other guys that are 34, 35, early 30s, that they committed to something early on and now where they're at. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, damn, you know what I mean? Because here's why. And here's what scares me is back to the self-esteem issue. If we're talking about the podcast, like I'm not important enough for people to care.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's like, why would I invest into it? The other reason is like, if it's another business thing, like, hey, I got to go all in on this. I got to make a transition or this. I'm not good enough to achieve those things. Mm-hmm. Now, that's not a constant, like I just truly believe that, because I look and I'm like, no, there's times like I know that I can. I know that I've got more ability and more talent, more personality than this guy. But he committed 10 years ago to building this. And look at him now at 35, younger than me. And now he is where I wish that I could be.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
For whatever reason, that person decided at that time that this is important enough to go all in, fully commit to, regardless of the adversity that I face along the way. Yeah. It's important. The overall goal is important enough that I'm going to commit to it.
And it's so funny how short of a memory we have because, and I think everybody in this room right now has had this, anything that you've actually committed to, really, if you look at it, how many of those would you actually consider failures that you actually failed? Yeah. If you commit to it.
Right.
Like,
I mean,
really, that's what I'm saying. If you commit to something and you are all in on it, whether it's a relationship, whether it's a job, whatever it is, when have you actually ever failed? Now, there's maybe bumps in the road. It may be challenging. It may
take longer than you thought. Yeah.
Right. You know, look, I know people that have like committed to like real estate development for example. They've committed, they've been all in, and they ended up going BK. They went bankrupt because a deal went sideways. And there's so many like massive big developers that have gone through that. And like, oh, you failed. No, he kept going. He was committed to seeing it through. And now they are 30 times higher than they were at their highest point before going bankrupt.
Yeah.
And so it's like, I always struggle with it. And there was a quote that I saw, and I'm gonna paraphrase it because I can't remember exactly what it was. But like, don't be afraid to commit to your goals because of the time that it's gonna take. Mm-hmm. Time is gonna pass regardless. So commit to it. Mm-hmm. Put your effort, focus, passion into whatever it is that you're committing to. Because guess what? If you're afraid, because I think of like, oh, if I go start like a business that I really love, it's gonna take 3 or 4 years to build up before I. Guess what? The 3 or 4 years are going to pass anyways. Yeah. So do you want to be at 3 or 4 years and not and not have accomplished that goal? Time doesn't care. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's going to happen anyways.
Yeah. No, that's really good.
So commit to it. And don't let self-esteem block you, because anybody that commits to something, and look, I get that there's things, people may have disabilities that prevent them from certain things that maybe they wish they could do, right? Or, hey, you're 5'2", you're probably not going to be a basketball player. I probably wouldn't commit to that, right? Have these realistic commitments. But at the same time, like, if you commit to something and you see it through and don't give up when it gets hard, there's a very low probability that you're really going to truly say you failed unless you quit early.
Exactly. That's really the only way that you do fail is when you quit. And if for the overall context of this discussion, you weren't truly committed to it, apparently, right? Or you wouldn't have quit. Yeah. That's why I love your story so much, getting to the NFL and playing 7 years, is because you did anything and everything it took. You were fully committed to that dream of yours, that goal of yours. And you did whatever. It didn't matter what got in your way. Didn't matter what obstacles there were. You were going to commit and you were going to succeed because you were never going to quit until you did. Yeah. And it ultimately ended up in a 7-year NFL career, which is twice and a half the average.
Yeah. And look, that's a scenario that, look, if you were to, and this isn't me saying, hey, my life is a book, but like if you were to write a book, okay, that's a cool ending, right? Mm-hmm. People, that's great. But sometimes if you commit to something, it doesn't look anything like you planned it originally. Yeah. Right? Like, I always think, like, from a faith standpoint, right? It's like God's sovereignty over my life. Like, he put me through things that I didn't think I wanted it to be this way. Mm-hmm. It ended up a different way, which was way better. So you may commit to starting a media company, but then that ultimately, again, what if that media company turns into an AV company and you start, installing, you get into video, whatever, right? But it doesn't mean that Snacks Media was a failure if it pivots to something bigger and better ultimately in the long run.
Yeah, I just heard this on a podcast the other day. This guy talks about, it's Atomic Habits, James Clear. And he talks about, I have the overall goal in mind, but the method I get there, I keep open to it can be I'm open to whatever, right? As long as the ultimate goal is achieved, I really don't care how I get there, which is exactly what you're saying. It might, flow this way or flow that way, and it turned into something else. But as long as the ultimate goal is achieved, I'm good with it.
I mean, think of Jeff Bezos. Yeah. The guy started a book selling company. Like, that was his goal. Is like, I'm gonna use the internet and I'm going to sell books. Like, do you think that he said, man, if I'm delivering groceries in 30 years from now, I'm going to be a complete failure? Probably.
Yeah.
Oh, you're delivering groceries? Yeah, to billions of people. Like, you know what I mean? Yeah. It's like, it's just because, so the fear of the unknown, don't let your self-esteem stop you from committing to something that may seem very big.
Yeah.
And that's an encouragement. And I want to talk self-esteem on relationships, and then we're going to move on. Is David's point about people don't care. Think about if you let self-esteem halt a relationship that ultimately could have been amazing for your life. You know, whether it's approaching somebody for the first time, because I mean, if you ask girls, if I were to ask Tiffany, hey, do you remember every single time a dude hit on you? She'd be like, no, I maybe remember 2 because they were complete a-holes. Like, and it just stood out because they were a-holes. But like girls, and I'm speaking from a man's standpoint, and I'm talking about younger versions of ourselves, is that they don't look, if you go in and look, I want to start a conversation with you and I respect you, like, and they say no, whatever. Like, they're not going to lose sleep over it that night. Like, you may think that, but if you let self-esteem stop you from trying to make that initial conversation, you could be missing out on something great. Deeper down the road is the fear of commitment because of self-esteem. Like I brought up as an example, I don't want to commit to somebody because I'm afraid they're going to find out who I am, right? Because I don't think I'm good enough for that person. I went through that in a long relationship. And it all happened for a reason, much, much better than I had planned, but I wouldn't commit to a relationship. I was kind of in and out. We'd break up every 6 months. Anytime marriage was brought up, we'd break up because I didn't think that I deserved that level of happiness. I mean, now granted, the relationship, it was not right, but like, great person, all the right physical and, relational attributes, but it just wasn't right. But with Tiffany, it was one of those things that for the first time that self-esteem was wiped aside, and it was like, look, I'm committing to this from the start. Like, literally after our first date, I said, I'm marrying that girl and whatever it takes to get there, because that is pure joy. So don't let your self-esteem derail a relationship, whether you're in it or you're getting into one or have the opportunity to meet somebody. Please don't let self-esteem derail you. Yeah. Okay, so and I don't know if you want to say something. I was going to go to the next point.
Go ahead.
So there's the next one, family history of modeling. And I'm going to speak first about relationships. There's a study that shows that children whose parents are together but not married have a harder time in life committing because they had the example in front of them that they don't have to commit, right? So as parents, what we model for our kids is received. More so, it had more of an impact than a kid that had their parents divorced, right? You think, okay, your parents get divorced, there's trauma associated with it. That didn't correlate to future divorce or for future commitment issues for children whose parents were divorced as much as seeing the kids that parents just never committed, just lived together and never actually got married. Now, the family history side of it is if it's an ugly divorce, if it's really bad and there's trauma within that cycle, that led to fear of commitment because now you're afraid of being hurt. That's a real psychological issue that many people deal with because of what they saw, right? And how that correlates to commitment. Same thing with kids that see their parents not commit to just chasing their goals or chasing their dreams. And it bounces around, takes whatever job, takes this, takes that. Look, people bounce around and some people actually like floating from job to job. And that's just something that they like. They like the freedom, but modeling and kids seeing that, they replicate that lack of commitment to one goal. So again, parents, you may tell your kids one thing, but how you live is very important because that's what your kids are going to receive.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. And this is a big topic. And I mean, there's, all these different aspects, whether it's in parenting, whether it's in relationships with your spouse, whether it's your job, commitment's it's a huge deal. And there's so many different routes and avenues that we could go down. I think overall, hopefully, though, the encouragement here is whatever it is that you're committing to is going all in.
Yeah.
And really sticking it out through whatever it is that comes up, because those things will come up. It's not going to be perfect, whatever it is that you're going after that you're committed to. But that's, for me, it's the encouragement of just not being afraid to go after it. So as we wrap this up, maybe a couple of final closing words of encouragement from each of us. Tyler, we'll start with you and give David a second to think. But I'm curious to hear what David would say to people that are maybe struggling with commitment. Yeah. Tyler, how would you? What final words of encouragement would you give to people?
I think like a lot of topics that we talk about is, one, you've got to acknowledge it first and foremost. You've got to recognize, do I struggle committing to things or committing to people? And then you've got to understand, okay, why? Where does that come from? One of the things that you can do to combat it is actually, number one step is talk about it. Is talk with somebody that you trust, talk with a counselor, talk with a therapist, talk with pastor, whoever it is that you trust, and really just kind of get it out there. So the more you talk, the more you learn about yourself. And so if you have struggles with commitment, identify it and try to track it back to the source as best as you can, because then you can actually either learn, okay, hey, is that a justified thought or fear? And if it is, okay, now I've got to treat it, right? I've got to address it. If not, then, hey, look, that's unjustified. Like, let it go.
Yeah.
Like, move on from it. But if you just keep it trapped and hidden, you're never gonna find that. You're never gonna learn that about yourself, and you're never gonna be able to progress. Yeah. So my advice is, look, assess yourself honestly. Maybe ask those that you love, that love you. Okay, hey, do you see anywhere where I'm struggling with commitment? Whether it's my job, whether it's my goals, whether it's my fitness, whether it's, okay, address why you have those commitment issues. And then I think that you can take a step in really lifting your commitment to committing.
Commitment to committing. I love it. David, how would you encourage somebody who's maybe in where you were 3 or 4 years ago?
I would say that the conditions are never going to be perfect.
That's good.
Whether that's like a relationship, I'm waiting to have this amount of money before I pull the trigger or something like that, or same with the job. Sometimes you just gotta go for it. Yeah. And same with the diet too. It's like, I'm going to wait till after Christmas. Yeah. It's like, no, maybe if you do it through Christmas, that actually was what pushes you to finish the diet.
Yeah.
That's what I did with 75 Hard. I was like, I had 3 weddings coming up, and I was like, man, if I make it through these 3 weddings, then I know I'm going to finish.
Or some vacations.
Yeah, Tyler. So
we'll talk about that later.
So that's where it's like, maybe try to make it harder for yourself.
Yeah,
and the conditions for anything are never going to be exactly how you want.
That's a great point.
That's so
great
good.
Point.
That's really, really. That simple statement just hit me in the forehead like a ton of bricks. Of the conditions are never going to be perfect. Sometimes it'd be as simple as statements. Thank you for sharing that. That's really, really, because that's the most DMs that we get by far are people that are talking about they have this certain job, they're not sure if that's the job for them.
Yeah.
And so I think, David, your story and hearing that is perfect for something like that, because that's the most feedback we get by far is people who are in one job and they want to think about another. And I think a lot of us probably, especially since COVID, a lot of us are probably going through that. So thank you for sharing that. My encouragement would be start simple. Find a lane, pick a lane, whatever it is, whether it's your fitness, whether it's your relationships, whether it's your job. Pick a lane, pick an aspect of your life, and start with a simple commitment. Let's just use fitness as an example. I'm going to commit to 3 workouts a week for the next month. For the next 30 days, 3 workouts a week, that's what I'm going to do. Start that small. Prove to yourself that you can commit something and follow through.
Yeah.
Because I think, to me, that's how habits are formed. It's formed by these little simple tasks and things that we truly, because how many times do we make this massive commitment to ourselves, but we're forgetting about the little low-hanging fruit. Just start small. Commit to something, pick something, whatever aspect of your life you want to pick to, right? and start small and commit and see that through. Yeah. And I think that will build and give you the confidence over, at least that's what works for me, right? That gives me the confidence over time that, hey, I can do this. I can commit to something and see it all the way through.
Yeah.
Speaking of commitment, we appreciate you guys who are committed to listening to this podcast. Yeah. The best way you can help us, we talk about this all the time, is sharing the podcast, whether it's texting your buddy who you're having a conversation with and you said, hey, the Darren Woodson Show talked about this. I think you'd really appreciate it. Whether that's sharing on your social media is great. Leaving us reviews on the podcast platforms is always appreciated.
Yeah.
And then follow us on social media. We're at the Darren Woodson Show on Instagram. We're at the Darren Woodson Show on YouTube. You can watch these episodes on YouTube. And then, as always, we've been teasing this a little bit. We're going to ramp this up slowly. We've got a huge, massive announcement coming up at the end of December. This has
been a big deal for Ben because Ben just wants to like shout it from the mountaintops.
It's been a long time coming.
Hey, let's give a little teaser. Bit.
We've been working behind the scenes very, very hard for a very exciting new announcement that we're going to make on December 29th. I think is the episode. Mm-hmm. So the end of the year, our last roundtable of the year, we've got a big announcement. So make sure you're tuned into that. We appreciate you guys. Hopefully this was encouraging and helpful to you guys. Please share the show. Tyler, any final closing words?
Nah, we appreciate y'all. Just know we're committed to being here with y'all. We're committed to being real. We're committed to being transparent. I think as you heard today, we struggle with these same issues. There's no doubt. We've had examples in our lives where we have committed to something and we've seen results. And I personally have had more where I have not committed, and there's probably more regret associated with it. Absolutely. So we're right there with you. We just want to share it with you. Like Ben said, we're committed to interacting with you, to responding to you, because we want to be a platform for y'all to just feel comfortable that you can ask us questions. We don't have all the answers, but with Darren's Rolodex, we got the resources.
That's right. Appreciate you guys. Have a great rest of the week.